It's 2 a.m. and you're doing math in your head. Rent, the card you haven't paid off, the number in your account that never seems to grow the way it should, the gap between what you earn and what you thought you'd have by now. You tell yourself you'll figure it out tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and the same math runs again at 2 a.m. A man who was once a slave, who owned nothing, who had no money, no property, not even legal ownership of his own body, wrote the most complete philosophy of financial peace that has ever existed. His name was Epictetus, and he never had a bank account in his life. What he understood about money will change how you carry this. Financial anxiety has become one of the defining experiences of modern adulthood, and it's not irrational. Wages have not kept pace with the cost of housing in most major cities. The path that used to lead to stability, degree, job, house, retirement, no longer guarantees any of those outcomes. An entire generation is doing the math correctly and getting an answer that doesn't work. So this isn't a video about money mindset, in the way that phrase usually gets used. This isn't about manifesting abundance or thinking your way into wealth. The structural problems are real, and no amount of Stoic philosophy changes a market. But there is a second layer to financial anxiety that philosophy can actually address, and it's the layer most people never separate from the first. There's the actual numbers, what you earn, what you owe, what you have. And there's the experience of those numbers, the dread, the shame, the comparison, the 2 a.m. spiral that happens regardless of whether your situation is improving or not. Those are two different problems. The Stoics couldn't fix the first one for you. They had no concept of inflation or mortgage rates, but they built one of history's most rigorous frameworks for the second. And Epictetus, who had no money at all ever for his entire life, is the philosopher who mapped it most precisely. Epictetus built his entire philosophy around one core division, the same dichotomy of control we've discussed before, applied here with total precision. He divided everything in existence into two categories: things up to us and things not up to us. Money, in his framework, falls into a special category he called an indifferent. Not because money doesn't matter. Epictetus wasn't naive about hunger or shelter, but because money itself is neutral. It has no power to make you good or bad, peaceful or anxious, worthy or worthless. It is a tool. It can be used well or badly, but it carries no moral weight of its own. What carries weight, what actually produces the anxiety, is what you've attached to the money, the story underneath the number. For most people, that story is some version of, my net worth is my worth as a person. Or, if I don't hit this number by this age, I've failed. Or, other people my age have more, which means I'm behind, which means something is wrong with me. None of those are facts about your bank account. They're interpretations layered on top of it. And Epictetus's central insight was this: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. That's not a slogan about minimalism. It's a precise diagnosis. The anxiety isn't proportional to how much money you have. It's proportional to the gap between what you have and what you've decided you should have. And that second number, the should, is almost entirely constructed by advertising, by comparison, by a number someone else decided represents success. Reduce the wants that were never actually yours, and the anxiety shrinks even if the bank balance doesn't move. Here is where Epictetus becomes genuinely useful instead of just comforting. When you're in real financial pressure, bills due, income uncertain, debt accumulating, it's tempting to feel like everything is out of control. Epictetus's method was to take that overwhelming, undifferentiated dread and sort it, ruthlessly, into two columns. Not up to you, the state of the economy, your employer's decisions, the rent your landlord sets, what happened in the past that led to this debt, what other people think about your financial situation. Up to you, what you do today. The next decision, the next dollar, your response to the people you owe, whether you ask for help or hide, whether you face the number or avoid it. Anxiety thrives on the blur between those two columns. When everything feels like one undifferentiated crisis, you're paralyzed, because you're trying to control things you fundamentally cannot. The Stoic practice is almost mechanical. Take the entire anxious feeling and write down specifically what about it is actually actionable today. Not the whole future. Not the whole debt. Today's actionable piece. Epictetus put it this way: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This isn't toxic positivity that ignores real constraints. It's the opposite. It's taking the constraints seriously enough to act precisely within them, instead of drowning in the parts you can't touch. The 2 a.m. spiral happens because the brain is processing the entire situation at once. Debt, future, shame, comparison, fear, as a single overwhelming mass. The Stoic move breaks that mass into the only piece that's actually real right now. What's the next right action? Here's what makes Epictetus different from every other philosopher who's ever written about money. He wasn't a wealthy man theorizing about simplicity from comfort, the way it's easy to imagine modern minimalism gurus doing. He was born into slavery. He was, by Roman law, property, not a person with property. He owned literally nothing, including, legally, himself. After he was freed, he lived the rest of his life with almost nothing by choice. A small house, a lamp, the bare minimum. Not because he couldn't have acquired more. Students offered him money. He refused most of it. His reasoning was the most radical part of his philosophy. If your peace depends on a number, you have handed your peace to something you don't fully control. The market can take the number. A debtor can fail to pay. An economy can collapse. But it cannot touch your judgment, your effort, your character. The things he called truly your own. This is not an argument for poverty. Epictetus wasn't anti-money. He was anti-dependency on money for something money cannot actually provide. Stability of mind. The practical version of this for you right now, dealing with real financial pressure. Separate your sense of self-worth from the number completely on purpose as a practice. Not because the number doesn't matter, but because tying your identity to it adds a second crisis on top of the real one. You can be working seriously to fix a financial problem while refusing to let that problem define what kind of person you are. Those two things are not in conflict. Epictetus did both every day for decades, owning nothing. So let's go back to where we started. 2 a.m. The same math running again. Epictetus would tell you 3 things. First, the number is neutral. What's running the spiral isn't the debt. It's the story you've attached to the debt, and that story can be examined and rewritten even before the debt is paid off. Second, in any financial pressure, only some of it is yours to act on. Find that piece, today's actionable piece, and the overwhelming mass becomes a manageable task. Third, a man who owned nothing ever in his entire life was never anxious about money, because he never let his worth depend on it. You can fix your financial situation and refuse to let it define you. Both at once. Starting tonight. The math at 2 a.m. will still need solving tomorrow. But it doesn't have to come with the second crisis, the one about who you are because of the number. That second crisis is optional. Epictetus, who had less than you, proved it. If this gave you something to hold on to, subscribe. Every week, one problem that's eating at people right now, and the ancient answer that still works. They had more time to think than we do. We might as well use it.